Hey guys, it's Fifth Lauren, also known as 944. Don't forget Thorin's YouTube channel.
NiKo has left FaZe Clan and joined G2. Nobody knows for who yet. Likelihood seems like Amanek or Jax. Not least since Nex is the in-game leader. Kenny S is the AWPer, still one of the better players as a resurgence of form, and is the face of G2. Hunter has been their best player for the last few months, is NiKo's cousin, and is apparently the reason NiKo joined the team. So let's do this one the other way around from normal. Instead of starting with should G2 kick someone and should they get someone, let's start this way around. Should NiKo have left FaZe? Because this is all about NiKo, let's be real, which is just the way he likes his life. Yes and no. Like, if we look at the team the way they are right now, yeah, they aren't a very good team. Like, I think realistically, in the time since they've had this lineup, obviously I'm counting like the one with Pure 4, Kirby as well, they were like the 5th best at their absolute peak for memory. And that was when there wasn't any NA teams to mix it up. And a lot of the time was played online. When we were on LAN, they were worse than that. Like, they were rarely a top 10 team. If they were 8th, 9th, 10th. They weren't close to winning titles. They never were, quite frankly, with that core, going to win any big titles. Like, it says it all to me that they pretty much fucking tripped over at the end and just somehow accidentally, like, won IEM New York or whatever, once the new NiKo was going out the door. That's what a good fucking IGL and great player this guy is. That once people know, oh, he's already just gone, and people just stop even, like, you know, who gives a fuck about this tournament, then they just win a tournament. Yeah, okay, mate. So, for me, the problem with this is, if I look at how good NiKo is, okay, if that's all I'm looking at, how good he is as a player, if FaZe had to stay the same way and he couldn't make any extra changes, and he claims he never had any say in any of these changes, it wasn't him who wanted any of them, victim mentality the whole way, by the way, yeah, you know what? It's questionable if G2 are better now, but that's before NiKo joins. With the pieces they'll have with NiKo, they're capable of, in theory, anything. They could be number one, they could win a major, they could be the best team. Potentially, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see the chemistry. They could win it, have an era. That's like the cap of the team. Because in theory, any team that has NiKo should have that cap as long as the other players are competent. The whole thing about the NiKo sports angle is he basically took a tier 2 team and drove them into the top 10, into tier 1, just by virtue of being a fucking prodigy, of being unbelievable individually at Counter-Strike. So my main issue with this, though, is before we get to this idea, I look at the pieces in FaZe Clan. I look, you could call Zeri, still a good player. You could still do things with Rain. Brocky seems like he's a pretty good player. I think people over him a little bit. He's only played mostly this online period, but he showed some signs offline. Not a fan of Kirby at this point in time, especially not in a team like this, but whatever. The problem I have is I just look at that team and say, if we all agree these are good players, if we all agree that as a 1-2 punch, like NiKo and Cold Zero is pretty fucking good, it's up there in the game, why can't we just recruit a good in-game leader and make this team something? Actually make use of the potential that NiKo never was able to as the in-game leader. So you think of how many in-game leaders have been available or could just have been gotten in the last year or so, and the last 6 months especially. You're looking at people like Alex. I mean, that should be a slam dunk, right? Lekro maybe even. MSL could have gone there before he joined North. Snappy. Shocks. Remember, Shocks doesn't mind being an IGL, especially if it's a really loose team, if he has Cold Zero and NiKo. Now, apparently, NiKo even says in the interview with HLTV, apparently they were trying for Alex. That's one of the reasons why that took so long, because Vitality was trying to get the highest buyouts, so they were playing like Cloud9 and FaZe and others off each other. I'd heard maybe they were considering Lekro as well, but I tell you straight up right now, as far as I know, they straight up ignored, dismissed, didn't even consider the likes of MSL, Snappy, etc. To NiKo, I've heard he doesn't think they're good enough. He doesn't think they're good enough in-game leaders, and it's like, he only wants, if it's someone he's not friends with and hasn't already accomplished great things, anyone could just look at someone's trophy and go, he must have been a good in-game. Like, that's not even having the fucking eye for the game. Unless they've done that or they're his friends, he'll just look at anyone who isn't the absolute best in-game leaders in the whole game and just be like, why would I recruit him? What would he do? Like, Mutt, you can be washed up Neo. You heard the rumour where they were trying Pronax years after he was fucking washed. Dren, when he was like a walking corpse, one of the greatest players ever from that region, but way past his sell-by date. He'll take those players because the guy's like a star fucker, I told you. It's like he just likes, it's either he respects them because they've done great things, therefore they become friendly with him, or he feels like, oh, they did a lot. But he never looks seemingly at what they do now and what they could bring to his team, and he has the arrogance to think, well, we're better than them. Even if it's like, mate, your teams are like fucking at the same level sometimes with the players I'm talking about. So the cruel thing for me is, NiKo not only doesn't seem to think they're good enough, but I think has never, I said this in my other video, I don't think he's ever understood in-game leaders and what they do. He has a fundamental lack of understanding of what a really good in-game leader does. That's why to him, he looks at MSL and just goes, just a shit in-game leader or something. Like, he just doesn't work. He doesn't get that. He doesn't have the pieces. He doesn't know when you put config and Magus with him, now he's doing more than I can do as an in-game leader. I have the better fucking players. The only great in-game leader NiKo ever had was Karrigan. And if you know his relationship with Karrigan, that says it all. Because he should now just be singing the praises of Karrigan in the years after him and going, actually, he was so great and I wish we could have worked through it. And yeah, you know what? Maybe it was me. Maybe I didn't understand how to work with him or I didn't see what he brought. No. Instead, in that rivalry video, when they asked him about Karrigan, he said overrated. Karrigan, one of the top 2 or 3 in-game leaders to ever play CSGO. One of the ones with the most insane longevity, who's been like number 1, number 2 in the world with 3 totally different lineups, with players from totally different sets. So probably taken players from, like, I'm going to guess, like 10 to 15 different countries to 1 or 2 in the world rankings. Players who were nobody before him, or they were just good players, or they'd never won a big trophy before with... It's unfucking believable. And this guy thinks he's overrated. By the way, you notice didn't give a proper reason why. Because he doesn't understand the game on that level. He's a really good star player who has a great game sense for a star player and can do great secondary calls and has a good understanding of what he wants to do in the game and what a good player should do, like basic concepts. But I don't think he understands things that, funnily enough, are Karrigan's specialty. Working on the tweaks with someone, shifting someone's rollover a little bit, reading the nuance, the flow of a game, designing a playbook, knowing when you've got the right strats but they weren't executed, knowing all that shit. This guy doesn't get the game. That's why he was never able to do any of that stuff. The same Karrigan, by the way, the one that he thinks is overrated, that got NiKo the majority of the meaningful trophies he's ever won in his entire career, who had him 1 round from winning a major. He's never even been in the final again, by the way, guys. 1 round from winning a major, in which, in the final, he was being carried for the first 2 maps. Oh, and by the way, when he didn't show up in those first 2 maps, they almost got swept by Cloud9. It seemed that had been in their back pocket the months earlier. And so as a result, I have to say, I think he is the main reason they didn't win that major. Because if he plays even 80, 90% of what you normally expect from NiKo and what he would even do in the rest of the tournament, they just win that major with ease. Those were the 3 best maps, the most comfortable maps. This is a team that they've been smashing the whole time. Yeah, NiKo was tilted. And he was fucking tilting me when I was watching it. The same Karrigan who went and took Mouse Sports, beat NiKo a whole gang of times, even when they hadn't made the ROP switch and become a top team. Then when they made the ROP switch in terms of role, go right up the rankings, way past him, win trophies, in finals, ending the year higher in the world rankings. This guy doesn't get it. And then what does he do in that interview when he talks about joining G2? He instantly compares Nexa to Karrigan as an in-game leader. You know why? Because that's the only good in-game leader he's ever played with in his fucking career. This guy is actually beyond parody. Like, you can't comprehend the ego of this guy. It reminds me, the only person I can compare it to is Old Simple. And if you know anything about Old Simple, that is fucking ridiculous. Now, he also says in this interview, it was also something he could have speculated, that he could have gone to Cloud9. So there was an option. It didn't have to be G2, could have been Cloud9. Now, I think that would be sick, because in theory, it's a worse team, and some of those players have to either be rehabilitated or get to the top for the first time. But here's why that would have been really cool. Because first of all, he would have gone if he could have taken Hunter. So already you have the 1-2 punch right there, and then maybe you have Roxic as the AWPer as well. Like, that's already a fucking really cool potential lineup. But more importantly, if he goes to Cloud9, a formerly great org that hasn't been great for ages, and they're trying a new project, and he's got his boy Kassad there as the coach. What an amazing way that would be to turn the corner with his rep, wipe the slate clean of all the mistakes, show that he's willing to commit to a project, and then when he builds a dynasty, it's all off his back. It's because of him. It's because he was there. He doesn't go and join Kenny S. Kenny S has won a major, mate, was the best player in that major. I personally thought Guardian was the MVP, but on his team, like, you go and joining 2 of the best players in the world at certain points in 2020. Do you always need to have help? Who the fuck are you? Kevin Durant, mate? LeBron James? What is this? I always need an extra player. Like, have you ever thought of actually working with the players you've got and getting more out of them? That's what a leader does. That's how you inspire people. Even great players need that leadership element, in my opinion. Lead by example. Show those guys. Inspire them to have the same competitive DNA you have, even though they're not as good. Something NiKo never understood. You look at teams NiKo's in without Carrigan, they are always less than the sum of their parts. They always have these good players, and then those other players never perform as well as just NiKo fragging out and being amazing. Now that's fine in NiKo spots because they were shit. They could never have been better. But all these FaZe lineups without Carrigan, mate, they should have been better. And many times they even showed the flashes for a game that can never keep it up, especially when NiKo was the IGL. So to me, what's whack is to leave FaZe, a team where, as far as I'm concerned, you've had massive influence and you have made moves. I know fans are going to go, but in an interview, but then his teammate in an interview, but on a stream they said, I don't give a fuck what pros say in public, in the sense that I do, but I don't treat it as the gospel truth. And I have seen pros repeatedly lie, exaggerate, cover for people, shield people they like. Sometimes just think, what's the point in talking trash? I have no reason to just tell people what's going on. What's done is done. Let's move forwards. That's the pro mentality. And NiKo's an amazing player. Pros still to this day tend to value you based on skill or if you're winning trophies now. So if they look at someone like NiKo, they're like, what a fucking god tier player. Like, why would I ever talk shit on him? He's better than me. That's really how pros think. I don't think that way. I don't have to respect that part of NiKo's attitude. I respect his game because he's incredible. I don't have to respect a big ego fucker who's going around like a bull in a china shop and then just backing out. Oh, I didn't do anything. I just turned around and then bloody broke him when I looked there. Like, it's fucking ridiculous. Like, the idea you're going to bring your boy called Zera, who you've been telling us in interviews is your friend for 2 years, you're going to bring him all the way over. By the way, he was also going to go the other way and join MIBR with him. Or there was even some rumour one day that they just both thought join like Team Liquid or some shit like that 2 years ago. You're going to go, let's play together one day, brother. We're going to do those trophies together like some fucking 80s double team type movie. He comes all the way over, lives in fucking Serbia, your home region, practicing all the time because it's Cold Zera, mate. And he's trying to get his game together. He's still letting you be the in-game leader. You do all that shit. Remember, Cold Zera tried being the in-game leader in MIBR. He lets you do all that shit. And then you're just like, you know what, Colt? It's been real, but I'm out of here. Well, enjoy fucking getting relegated from EPL. I mean, if only you could, right? So fucking hell, that's unbelievable. You leave your team. And by the way, I know he's going to say, but it wasn't my team. So I challenge him. I said this on By the Numbers. In a year or so, when enough space has come away from FaZe Clan, and the players, most of them are going to be gone by then, won't all be butthurt, do a long interview with someone, a sit-down interview, not me, because at this point in time, fuck yeah, I don't want to do an interview with me. Go to Richard Lewis. You don't have to go on your hands and knees, but he's going to put the real questions to you. At this point, I don't give a fuck if I get one interview out of you, mate. You've been enough of an arsehole. I'll just chill and do my own shit, mate. I don't need you. So when you do that interview, explain it all. Go on then, big boy. I challenge you. Explain it. Who was to blame for it? Who did make all those decisions? Management, was it? Fuck off. Management's the most absent of all time in that team. Then, conveniently, just all the people you think are legends in a wash keep joining the team. And they're never recruiting all these people. I would tell them, if I was consulting, get this guy as an IGL. This guy's quality. Well, I know he's underrated now because of his team, but you could get this guy, turn it around. He knows how tactics work, how you run a team. Yeah, convenient, isn't it? So, the idea I just come up with this stuff out of fucking thin air. NiKo's the kind of idiot who really doesn't think like, could anyone who's ever been a teammate of mine talk? In fact, would they ever resent me for the way I treated them or some of the shit that I did and me getting in the way of stuff and then maybe tell people? Or would he even have connections with, nah, probably just making stuff up because everything's about me. I'm solipsistic. And when I close my eyes at night, the universe stops existing and I close them and the universe is created. That's right. NiKo's that like fucking godhead out of fucking Hinduism, apparently. He's sitting on a lotus flower or whatever it is. And every day the lotus flower grows out, it opens, his eyes open and the universe comes out. And then at the end, after like 900,000 million years or whatever, it goes back into the flower and a new universe is born. No, actually, that isn't the way it worked, mate. There was a life before a guy in Bosnia was fucking born. And guess what? There was even teams with Carrigan and other great in-game leaders before NiKo was around, and there will be after NiKo's around. So let's think about that Cold Zera interview, right? Where Cold Zera, guy who's not afraid to just speak his mind, respect, one of the great masters of the game, by the way, and who understands Counter-Strike, he essentially says in the interview that, they were playing for the other players at one point, but eventually they were just sort of playing for NiKo. Weird that, isn't it? Your own mate, just when you left the team, implies you were the guy who was all centered around. You were the guy who was the magnet drawing the attention and all the focus and getting to do your game, which means when you frag out, you don't get the full credit for that. You get it as a player, but as an in-game leader, you get less credit because you didn't win and you were selfish. That's fucking ridiculous. The sign of a great in-game leader is how good he makes the other players around him. You fail on that regard. I'm giving you an F grade in that regard. I used to say a C or a D grade, but that was like the first year. I thought you'd settle into this shit. I thought you'd learn. I thought when Yanko came, you got to listen to this guy as your mate. Yeah, how'd that work out? By the way, you've tanked his fucking career as well as a coach. Every fan now thinks he's shit. And why? Because the massive egotists in fucking MIBR wouldn't listen, and then his own best friend. What? Either he's actually shit, NiKo, in which case, okay, maybe you have an excuse then. I don't know why you recruit your friend if he's shit. Or you just help tank your own friend's fucking career. And apparently you're just cool with that. I've never even seen you address in interviews like what Yanko does, what he's done for the team, what he's taught you. Give me a fucking break. So then let's talk about this, right? If NiKo really was the one who wasn't deciding all this, and he is a good in-game leader like some of the teammates try to imply or fans say, he must be the most unlucky in-game leader in the history of Counter-Strike, right? Look at the talent that surrounded him for like a 2-year span where like for 1.5 years out of it, he was the IGL. Look at the team he took over as the in-game leader when Carrigan was removed as the in-game leader. He won a couple of tournaments, he had some high placings, but beyond that it fell straight off. But why though? Carrigan's not the in-game leader anymore, bruh. What's the problem? Where are all the finals and tier 1 tournaments on LAN? Where's all the trophies? I don't care about blast of ones and then playing a best of 3 against someone. Where were even the top 4s most of the time? Those were rare when we were on LAN. And I don't care what people say publicly in the sense that this guy doesn't even have a good alibi. Like, oh, that's not true. Okay, what did happen then? Reasons? Like, what alibi does he have? He just gives vague illusions, and then people who like him personally or think he's a skilled player just prop him up. But Thorin pros say that NiKo's in-game leading's underrated. I'd say that as well if I was playing against him. Keep the fucking big head call and all that shit, and I'll keep winning games against him and go. Every time I shake his hand, I go, you're a bloody good player in game leader. Tell you what, we got very lucky, we know it, but I don't want to play you again next time. Can you believe this shit, boys? Imagine if they ever actually got a good in-game leader. Nah, NiKo, fucking hell, mate. You tortured us with that T-side. The way you got 5-6 rounds, fucking hell, I was scared you were going to get 8. Just thanks for just letting up at the end. Like, think about this. What the fuck do those pros know? You'll notice most of those pros aren't good in-game leaders. Or they're people who have a former relationship with him and just don't want to speak badly about him. Like I say, what are the odds you have all that talent? You have all this time to be in-game leader. You're doing it for years. Everyone's saying you're good at it. Everyone's saying you've embraced it. Then in every interview, you always claim you never wanted to be IGL. You were trying to quit it all the time. But magically, I've tripped over and picked up the crown again. I guess I'll have to be the bloody king, won't I? I don't even like it. I hate this. All my decrees to the subject. I fucking hate this. It tortures me inside. Everything my way and only my way. Destroy them if they don't. Why did they make me? Why did they make me be the king? Why the god emperor? I wish I could just be a peon. I wish I could just do nothing like he did under Carrigan. Fuck Carrigan. How dare you mention the former king's name and the new king's name? Give me a break, mate. It's fucking unbelievable. So, okay, he wanted to play with Hunter. That was a reason to join G2, right? I get it. Hunter's a really good player, has a lot of potential, and their family. You know what? As long as everyone keeps their head on straight, what a fucking cool story, right? If you know the region they come from, like the fact that they had to have their families support them to even try getting into esports, look at my Cassard interview. Yeah, I get it. Like, that's a really sick reason. That's actually an angle I fuck with. But I will say, it is a classic NiKo MO move, which is he tends to have a way too much of a desire to play with people for sentimental or friendship reasons. Like, I get it in this case, and I don't think it's going to be an issue as long as Hunter remains a good player. Not least because Hunter seems like the night and day in terms of attitude and ego compared to NiKo, which is why it's amazing he has the same skills, right? I don't know how this guy developed. Maybe it's because he had to stay at tier 2 for so long. But I do think overall that has been a factor that has massively hampered NiKo's career. So I hope that's not going to be the case here. Now, in terms of G2 getting NiKo, listen, as a player, it's obviously the right move. He is the best player available. You're not signing Simple or Zebu or whoever. They aren't leaving their teams, unsurprising. They're on good teams. They haven't been crippling their teams for years. He's also one of the truly special God-tier players, a true prodigy. And listen, Carlos Ocelot, the owner of G2, he knows what it's like to have caps, to have perks, that if you can get them, you get them, and you try and hold them as long as you can until you've squeezed every fucking championship out of them. That's why I was talking about in my League of Legends video. So you have to take the gamble if you're G2. Because who wants to be 3 years down the line doing interviews going, I had a chance to get NiKo. Wonder what would have happened if we'd have gotten NiKo. You don't want to be that guy. You take the chance now while he's in theory still in his prime, still got good years left in him, and you hope you can polish off some of the rough edges a la Simple in Na'Vi in the last few years. Because that's the issue. It's the attitude that I have concerns about for G2, because they're a really cool team right now with a great blend of guys, all with good attitudes pretty much, all listening to the coach, all trying to learn because their coach pretty much helped them get to where they're at and revitalize some of their careers and set the structure of the team, and has done a lot of the tactics and made them really good on certain maps, helped them learn how to play Vertigo and other such maps. So you're bringing in a guy hasn't shown the best ego as a teammate, attitude, etc. Now, that's not necessarily a concern now. If you're winning, NiKo's not going to be a big deal. Like, what they don't seem to get is, I once thought about making this video, but then I just saw him doing more interviews and I thought, fuck, he doesn't deserve it. Which is this. In a sense, NiKo isn't the problem. And what I mean by that is this. I don't think he's a big ego, guys, and he sits down and goes, fuck everyone, I'm going to do it all my way. No, it's like my joke sequence there where he thinks like he is doing the right thing, but really he's doing all the things he says he's not, and he is the tyrant, right? It's just unknowingly he's that case. And ironically, as an IGL, he'd be the emperor with no fucking clothes, and then all the fucking people are just going, he's a brilliant IGL, isn't he? Even though he hasn't got any fucking clothes on. That's obviously not actually IGLing, but I'm just going to say it is. So what people don't get is this. I think NiKo actually does want to win, genuinely. I think he really does think he's doing the right thing. But I think he only wants to do the right thing that he likes and win on his terms. I think he is misguided and has a big ego. Now, having a big ego, if you know how to transform it and transmute it from something negative into something good, could be incredible. If you channel that like Simple did, you can be the best player in the entire game. I've told people this before. NiKo is the only player right now who I actually think truly compares to Simple. And the reason I say that is this. Take Zero and chuck him in a team where he doesn't speak French with all the players. Or take him and just put him with a random bunch of players and he just has to frag out all the time. On his own, no setup, no tactics, no great in-game. Would he be the best? I don't know. I've never seen that kind of a setup. So if he channels it, he can challenge Simple and we can have a god tier head-to-head. In fact, we're going to have a three-way. We can have Simple versus NiKo versus Zero all the way till the end of time. That'll be so god tier for the next 3 to 4 years, right? The problem is, I have seen no signs that he even gets it. He's still in denial about a lot of this shit. I'll add in, he can be a whiner. That can bring down the morale of some of those teammates, especially the ones who aren't as good as you, or the ones that are causing the problems in terms of making mistakes, and then you make them feel twice as bad. I will say, individually, he seems to have a very strong work ethic. His style and his strengths, they aren't just natural talent. He's really worked at it, and he's thought about it a lot as well. I actually think, individually, he's mastered the game in terms of his skills and style in a way that, like, I don't even need five fingers to name the other people who've done that. Like, Olaf at his prime, Shocks for most of his career, Simple now, maybe, and even then Simple's angles and aspects, I'm not even sure if that should count as a mastery. Like, he's just, he's the ultimate iconoclast. Like, there's very few, get right in his prime, there's very few players I think have mastered the game like NiKo has individually. So obviously the question now is, who do they kick out? Now, obviously Amanek and Jax, in terms of their level, they're not like super hot prospects, so they could just stay as the sub. That would even be appropriate to some degree. Now, in terms of him saying in the interview he wants to do a lurk role, well, that makes it sound like Amanek's probably getting kicked, doesn't it? And by the way, when you consider on the scale, I see Jax as a soldier, great entry player, do what you say, maybe great's exaggerated, good entry player. To me, Amanek's more of the brain, he's a little bit more of the lurk aspect, the secondary court. Like, he was the guy who, spoiler, was actually calling when sometimes they used to let the public think Shocks was calling in the old team that they had, when they were like a team going to the fucking EPL finals, etc. People just don't know that because there was another big ego they had to fucking cater to. So, one of the things I find very weird is this. If he's going to be a lurker, listen, I think NiKo brings some of the best brain individually and game sense of any player. And I think he's amazing if you put him in that role. So I would even say from that role, he could be a secondary caller. Like, as a lurker, I've always thought practically you have to be able to comm properly. So one of the problems I had with Happy and Envy, it's the reason why I thought NBK and Existence was a god tier combo, because NBK is a guy who likes to comm a lot, give clever info, knows what the IGL's waiting to listen to. But then NiKo in the interview says basically he'd have to talk less as than that anchor and lurker, and that he wouldn't be given as much info. So again, I don't think this guy gets a lot about team structure and dynamics, quite frankly. His skill, like, listen, of course he's got the skill. We know that. Of course G2 has skill. Like, I know they're not good now, but their skill already was pretty solid. Like, if Nexa, Amanek and Kenny S turned up, they could compete with anyone. I will say, though, the problem with that is one of those guys is the in-game leader, so I thought it put undue pressure on Nexa. He had the IGL, read the game, they had super chaotic comms, and then he had to frag the fuck out as well. Like, that probably was asking for too much. So I hope they keep a semi-loose style. I don't think NiKo's a player that you put in a hard system. I also think Malek is a good coach. You can watch my recent episode with him. He's got a great mind for the game. I think if you make NiKo be his old self and they have some structure, or they have structure in the right places and they let the boys go like NiKo, they could be a very good team. I will say, I hope the second he joined G2, he went and downloaded all the Vertigo demos and started studying his fucking arse off on that map, because that is one of the best things about G2 has been their Vertigo for most of this year, and he has to put his homework in, because I don't ever consider FaZe to have been that good a team on that map, and they were actually basically never playing it in the last period that he was in it. So one of the issues is they have a totally different map pool to FaZe Clan, so it isn't just plug and play for NiKo in that sense. Then there's also this aspect that G2 is one of the most successful teams marketing-wise as well, and that's because they have a banter culture, which is promoted top-down. Carlos Ocelot loves that style. Banters his own team, makes fun of his own star players, says he's going to cut them if they don't perform, says if they lose, like, oh, we're shit or whatever. Like, NiKo's the sort of person who, at least publicly so far, hasn't been able to handle that. Their League of Legends team does it. The Rainbow Six team does it. Even their CSGO team before NiKo does it. I mean, Nexa did that straight fire tweet where he basically said, like, he's going to get kicked, looking forward to sort of getting kicked after NiKo joins and takes over IGL from him. Straight fire angle, by the way. Now, I will say, I believe that Carlos Ocelot could get through to NiKo. I think he used to be a bit of a toxic egotist when he was the mid laner for SK in 2013. His prime was gone, but he was still there shaping the team. Decided, like, I think he could get through to him because he became a really cool guy. He channeled that in the right way and made an incredibly successful org as a result. So the issue is, if he doesn't get through to NiKo, well, spoiler for all of you, just because he's good with an AK doesn't make him a cool guy. He has a massive stick up his arse. His banter, even when he tries it, the thing about having the corks or whatever, it's just passive-aggressive disses. It's not like fun banter. It's not like being friendly or whatever. I can tell you from personal experience, this guy doesn't get that side of just being a human as far as I can tell. He's the guy where you make a joke, an effacing joke, or you make the joke in front of the boys when you're all sitting having a beer. Everyone else laughs and goes, haha, because you're all having fun, you're just laughing. You know it's making jokes. It's part of being a man, right? And then, because he's the god tier player who's better than all of you, and like, how dare this week, he'll just have like a sour look on his face, like he just doesn't get it, or like, He would literally, I've told this story before, come over to me when he was in Mouse Sports and berate me, or try to rather. I used to fucking sit him down verbally over and over again. And he'd try and argue over the most stupid shit you could imagine. Like, he'd take it personally. I said Mouse Sports weren't going to win the tournament. That I said that his fucking teammates Dennis and Spiddy sucked and were holding him back. He'd act like I'd said he sucks. That's how childish this guy was. He acted like his name was Mouse Sports. I mean, ironically, we called it NiKo Sports because they were fucking shit. I mean, never mind that then he got out of Mouse Sports, went to a much better team with Carrigan and started winning championships, getting near the top of the rankings. Never acknowledged that, of course. Never just said, well, I was wrong on that one, or you know what, I learned, or I've had some personal growth and I'm mature. Nah, of course not. Nah, none of that, mate. Because again, this is someone who just doesn't acknowledge that he ever made mistakes, seemingly. He might allude to it a little bit, never outright come and say it, though. Like, when they'd come over, and he'd be trying to defend Dennis and Spiddy when I'm just trying to have a fucking beer and chill with my friends who I work with. Like, if you want to talk shit to me, do it on Twitter, do it on the desk, mate, do it on an interview. But no, they'd come over after his 1.5 fucking beers, before he got completely rat-arsed, and they'd be fucking hanging off his arm, getting ready to laugh after every little thing he tried to say. Like that fucking shit that was next to Jabba the Hutt in, like, Return of the Jedi, like, and I'd just be going like, will you get this fucking vermin out of my face? Like, it's unbelievable. One of the most butt-hurt humans I've ever met. And I've met Device. Now, in terms of FaZe, by the way, I don't have much to say there. They're semi-fucked. I've heard the team might just fold or change the lineup entirely anyway. I personally hope they could keep some of these players. I would get MSL, or I'd get Fallen. Get Carrigan, maybe. I thought would be a funny angle someone said on a show recently. Get these players. I'd either go tactical if you get a good in-game leader, or I'd go, if you get Fallen, go more skill-based. You've got Rain and Cold Zero. If they're still motivated, they could be star players. Cold Zero could maybe be one of the best players in the world again. Like, these are players you should be able to mould and do a lot with. I think Cold Zero is still motivated. I mean, I did hear Rain might leave. I heard basically there might be like a Norwegian super team going on. They've got the backing for it. So I don't know what goes on in that regard. Right, if you enjoyed this video, you hit the like, don't you? If you want to see more, you hit the subscribe. If you desperately know everything I say and think and talk shit about esports with, you click the little notification bell. If you want to see clips, you go to the clips channel. If you want to support this channel, well, you know what's coming up in a second. This video was kindly supported by Dean Tanglis, Pronogo, Alexander Rao, Andreas Kroknes, ErikHillestad, Hades, JDubs, the Puyallup Tribe, Tobias Bernasconi, VatriSam, Xinged, James Pederson, and as always, a special thanks goes out to my boy Jerky's Minion. Would you like to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Do you want to ask a question in my monthly video AMA? Do you want teasers? See who the upcoming guests are going to be? Maybe you'd like to take part in one of those monthly donated discussions with me about esports. Well, put your money where your mouth is and join the Screwluminati today in the Patreon link in the description box below.